Isaac and his cow lived alone on a trash farm on a hill.
Isaac has a lot of content, which is only natural for a game in development for over a decade. Due to the iterative design, the developers were able to respond to feedback, evolve design philosophy, and even hire talented fans. With so much content, Isaac offers a ton of variety, but this begs the question, how does that variety affect Isaac, and is it even desirable? But before diving into that, let's go over the basics of simply moving. The physics of the movement and shooting inform how you interact with everything, and they're more complex than they seem at first glance. When you move, you don't immediately start and stop. There's noticeable acceleration and deceleration, forcing you to anticipate threats. This would need to be considered if movement was instant. The physics extend to the shooting. Moving changes your tier's trajectory and velocity, meaning dodging isn't just about defense, it's also about offense. Since you can't shoot diagonally, you have to line up your shots from the cardinal directions, affecting positioning. Moving in and away from these cardinal directions often causes tiers to fling and miss enemies. Hitting tiers isn't about the physical precision of aiming a crosshair, instead being about positioning. These physics are stressed by the variety of enemy behaviors. You got enemies that chase you, fire from the sides, spawn minions, jump on you, and meander about. The combination of these often forces movement around the room, which are usually small with a lot of obstacles, complementing the enemies to make them more threatening. Even in godlike runs where you kill enemies instantly, they can still explode and hit you, accounting for the variance in power. Without items, Isaac lacks an easy escape option, like a dodge roll or block, so you need foresight to avoid getting cornered. Sometimes, the best strategy isn't to kill enemies outright, but to push them into better positions. Using knockback like this provides utility, akin to effects like freezing or stuns, but in an intuitive way instead of being a bespoke state. Your tiers are used for both offense and defense, dealing damage and creating space. All of that's not to mention how items can vary your movement, tiers, and knockback. All of these elements combine to make Isaac's movement and shooting deep yet simple, allowing more focus in resource management. Fighting enemies in Isaac is only half the challenge. Since Isaac limits the amount of resources on each floor, mastering Isaac requires good resource management. Coins can be spent at shops and machines, keys unlock various doors, and bombs are used offensively to kill enemies or for the utility of secret rooms and passageways. How you juggle resources can make or break your run. Most games use mimics to test your perception. Spot the fake chest, beat it, and the loot is yours. In Isaac, mimics are more than a perception test. They're a decision to use a resource. Health. Health isn't just for surviving, it's a currency. It's a versatile resource with use in spiked chests, mimics, sacrifice rooms, devil deals, blood donation machines, devil beggars, and on curse rooms. Having several types of health, like soul hearts, gives more ways to spend it. Unlike other games, sometimes you forego the loot in spiked chests because health is more valuable. Spending health ties into challenge rooms, which open based off of your current health level. This rewards clever players who temporarily reduce their health, people willing to risk playing with low health, and people who are already struggling with no health, achieving many goals at once. The time limit of Boss Rush and Hush forces a balance between maximizing drops and obtaining both pedestal items and completion marks. Every action becomes a decision. Will you have enough time to do everything you want to and still make it to the Boss Rush? It's not just what you choose to do in a floor, it also changes how you do it. Your route, your speed, and even your aggression level, all influenced by the ticking clock. Even going for the boss rush at all is a decision when low on time. This encourages not optimizing resources to the point where a run drags on. Despite the time limit, spending time gathering resources is still worthwhile because there are plenty of resources to manage and a variety of ways to use them. You'll spend countless hours in familiar areas, so they must be diverse enough to stay engaging. Since roguelikes are designed to be replayed, they randomize elements to vary which ones you'll see. But this doesn't matter if the selection is so small that it's repeating the same content. This is more crucial for the first area since it gets replayed the most. Isaac has 20 potential bosses on the first floor, more than some roguelikes have in total. On top of that, bosses have several arenas and colors that tweak their behavior. Even further, they can spawn enemies that have separate AI from the bosses, creating a variety of interactions. Unlocking this content gradually can keep people from feeling overwhelmed when they first start playing. By introducing bosses slowly, you have enough time to learn and acclimate to the current bosses before new ones are introduced. But if the early game content is sparse and it unlocks too slowly, you might lose interest before you've unlocked most things. Isaac avoids this by still having 6 different bosses right off the bat. When you see them all, the alternate floor, the cellar, is unlocked, giving more variety exactly when you've exhausted the current content. However, variety comes with the trade-off. The decision making is compromised. In the original Isaac, it's easier to make informed decisions because the random elements were more predictable. In both games, the chance of a red chest giving a pedestal item is 10%. Of this 10%, the original is guaranteed to give a guppy item, while Repentance dilutes this with a 5 out of 12 chance. Seeking red chest for the guppy transformation is a more informed decision in the original Isaac. Correction, it's actually 6 out of 12.9 chance of finding a guppy item in Repentance. The fact I made a mistake after looking it up, with no one I got feedback from catching it either, just shows how much harder it is to accurately weigh up information when there's so much content. Similarly, predicting items, enemies, bosses, and rooms can be a bit of a crapshoot, but there are still patterns. Certain floors have specific enemy pools, consistent room types, and predetermined final bosses. Instead of trying to inform decisions off of predictions, Isaac forces you to adapt to the current situation. Since there are so many possibilities, you can't force a specific item or situation. Another trade-off to this variety is remembering how to handle all 300 enemies. With fast bullets in tight rooms, reacting quickly is tough if you can't recall each enemy's behavior. Isaac helps to circumvent this by having many enemies share similar visuals and behaviors. If you see a unique grub, you can probably gather it'll dash in a straight line. You don't need to remember every enemy because you can reapply knowledge from similar ones, although this can backfire if you mistake one enemy for another. With over 700 items, mastering each one is a tall order unless it's a starting item. If an item appears once every 12 runs with varying relevance, there's not much opportunity to master it. Even if you know an item is good, the lack of experience might lead to choosing other items. This is especially relevant for active items because only one can be held at once. The amount of content and their synergies creates a ton of variety, but it can be difficult to plan around, predict, and remember. Items interact with each other with different synergies, giving each one a variety of different effects. Since the items you get are randomized, the possible combinations vary wildly from run to run. There are 2 types of synergies, hard-coded and natural. Hard-coded synergies are specifically programmed interactions between items, and while they're limited to what the developers included, they often lead to more intricate natural synergies. Natural synergies arise from natural interactions of independent systems that don't need to be programmed, offering endless possibilities that enhance discovery, variety, and reward skillful play. Even basic stat increases synergize with effects. Boost your damage, and it scales with effects that depend on it. Increase your tier rate, and status effects trigger more often. Damage and fire rate synergize because they multiply each other. On the other hand, familiars usually offer straightforward damage boosts that don't synergize, so they tend to be less useful. The newer familiars tend to provide utilities that simply shooting doesn't. When these utilities stack, especially with the conjoined transformation, they can significantly affect a run. Since items permanently tweak your tiers, their value hinges on how well they mesh with your current loadout, turning the simple act of picking up an item into a decision. This gives extra weight to taking blind pedestal items because detrimental items can't be removed. Take Dr. Fetus for example. It grants powerful bomb tiers that can clear crowds, but it also slows your tiers and risks self-damage. If it was a separate weapon you could switch out, there would be no downside. Without trade-offs, there's not much of a decision to be made. So, while the synergies can create a variety of powerful combinations, they can also be detrimental, needing to be weighed up. Synergies multiplying damage makes runs strongly tied to items, especially since quality can vary greatly. Some items are duds, but others can single-handedly win a run. Sure, most runs in Isaac might technically be winnable, but try taking down Mega Satan with your base tiers. It's painfully slow. Most roguelikes have less variance in strength than Isaac does, and while less variance would make Isaac more fair, it would also lose something. Bad runs make the good ones all the more satisfying. Just like with gambling, getting an amazing item after a streak of bad luck can be psychologically addicting, always chasing the next high. If every item was quality 4, they'd lose meaning because there would be no bad items to contrast to. It would also lose any surprise because it's always expected. The good items wouldn't feel good without the bad ones existing, since the bad items give the good ones context. Despite the variance, Isaac stays relatively fair through its generous health pool. With 12 hearts, you can afford 12 mistakes on the later floors, with invincibility time between each hit. If you unfairly take damage, it's only a fraction of your health. It's easy to blame the game when a single mistake costs everything, but 12 mistakes? That's a skill issue. Through good resource management, you can gain more health to stay alive longer to gain more items to make the game more fair. Even though Isaac can give you lemons, it usually gives more than that. Among the item pools, there's the item room, boss, devil, angel, shop, beggar, and planetarium pools, to name a few. Item rooms are a wild card, dishing out the most random and variable items. Boss room items balance this with more basic, consistent stat boosts. Devil rooms trade health for powerful, often damage-focused items. Shops usually offer utility over raw power. Beggars commonly hand out health upgrades. Together, these pools usually average out to a balanced build. Devil deals, shops, and beggars give more agency, trading resources for optional and tailored benefits. If you've got plenty of health but low damage, devil deals are your friend. Need more health? Donate to a beggar. You can hoard resources for several floors, waiting for the perfect item to complement your build. Angel rooms and planetariums act as safety nets to missed opportunities. If devil deals don't pan out, angel rooms offer free top tier items. Missed an item room? That gives the chance to find a planetarium for above average items. These rooms give a second chance for strong items, making missed opportunities sting less and adding a strategic layer of intentionally skipping item rooms or devil deals. Bad items can be rerolled through the D6, reroll machines, consumable items, and the harder alternate floors. These help balance the item pool and make every pickup a nail-biting decision. Do you settle for an alright item or gamble it for something better? The D6 adds another decision of which items to reroll if you have limited charges. Many items aren't about the decision to take them, but a challenge in finding them. Skilled players can get more items through good resource management, using sacrifice rooms, machines, and secret rooms. Tackling the harder floors for the extra items and improved item rooms is a classic risk versus reward scenario. The higher number of items help keep runs from being too weak, giving more consistency through skill. When combining the item pools, choices with resources, second chances, re-rolling, and extra items, the game pretty consistently gives runs that are good enough to win. It takes getting several mediocre items for an unwinnable run, but it can only take a single item to make a run easy. A game like Isaac can never truly be hard. The game is hard to start, and most of your early runs will end in failure. However, due to the variability, every boss can and will be a pushover given enough runs. You won't often find yourself struggling with the boss, learning its patterns through sheer determination, then finally overcoming it purely through skill. More likely, you'll get a run that obliterates the boss long before needing to understand its intricacies. In Isaac and many other roguelikes, difficulty isn't whether you can beat a challenge, it's how consistently you can do it. Beating a challenge several times in a row is much harder than beating it a single time because you can get lucky for a single win. To win consistently, you either need to be skilled or become infinitely more lucky. They could reward consistency by emphasizing win streaks through offering more unlocks for maintaining them. Displaying your best win streak with each character could go a long way in encouraging people to beat their streaks. Instead, Isaac uses characters to push its difficulty. The tainted characters often add challenge through playing around their quirky mechanics, but once you understand them, they can become some of the easier characters to play. Since everything is designed around the base mechanics, they can't push these characters too far. Changing the gameplay too drastically can make things feel unbalanced or unfair. Instead, the hardest characters are the ones that limit health to a few hits. Because changing health doesn't alter the core gameplay as much, Isaac can remain balanced while making a drastic change to it. But with any character, all it takes is a single godlike run to make the challenge irrelevant. The only way to be truly challenging is to demand consistency because of the game's wild variability. Due to the variability, many people reset runs immediately until they get a good start. The allure of planetariums, libraries, and curse rooms in the starting room can make resetting hard to resist. It's hard to pass up the potential to find an item that'll carry you. What makes resetting so tempting is the low time commitment. Just hold down the R key and you can quickly find a solid item. They could take it a step further, guaranteeing an item room in the starting room, but making it too convenient would make farming godlike items too easy. Push that logic to the extreme and you might as well let players pick their starting items from a list, since patience will eventually reward them with a stellar start anyway. Some downtime between resets is necessary to dissuade players from farming the best items every run. As mentioned before, focusing on consecutive wins would make people more committed to subsequent runs. To encourage chaining, you could get a free item room item after finishing a run, similar to Eden's Blessing. People would be reluctant to throw away a free item, even if it's bad. To give more commitment within a run, they could limit finding bigger rewards to the second floor. The larger time commitment to resetting on the second floor would discourage resetting. Isaac exists in a middle ground, where it makes resetting convenient but not too convenient. It's tempting, yet takes enough time to be slightly annoying. It's a viable option, but only to those who are willing to put up with it. Isaac offers endless discovery thanks to its variety. Even after sinking countless hours into the game, you're still unlocking new items and mechanics. And once you've unlocked everything, the game still has tricks up its sleeves with rare rooms that can surprise you hundreds, even thousands of hours into your playtime. Isaac never holds your hand. It doesn't guide you or hint at what you should do next. Every mechanic, every strategy, you have to discover for yourself. One way that Isaac fosters discovery is through its item descriptions, or rather, lack thereof. For each item, the sprite, the name, and the flavor text are all the clues you get to how it works. When deciding to pick it up, the only clue is the sprite. Once picked up, an item has the potential to do anything, with only the vaguest of hints to guide you. Some items, like Tech and Brimstone, make their effects crystal clear, while others hide behind layers of subtlety and conditions. Even the seemingly straightforward items often have subtle secondary effects. So, even with tons of experience, there's always something new to uncover about items that didn't initially present themselves. There are so many items that remembering each one perfectly is nearly impossible. If someone claims they remember what every trinket does, they're lying, or have spent way too much time in the basement. While this does create endless rediscovery, a lot of that discovery is minor. The more dramatic items leave lasting impressions and are more memorable. The items that need rediscovery tend to be those that weren't significant or interesting enough to stick in your mind. This can lead to some items feeling pointless. You don't remember what the item does, and the game doesn't remind you, so it can end up making little to no difference in your run, or at least feel that way. Not knowing what an item does can also throw a wrench into decision making. You can't make an informed choice about something you don't know. If you forget an item, a quick search online can tell you exactly what it does, helping weigh up minute details. But this can undermine in-game discovery, as players might look up everything before experiencing it firsthand. Finding new parts of the game online is a different type of discovery, but the type that robs the natural discovery found within the game. While the internet isn't a direct part of Isaac, it does affect how people play it. The developers have to consider this when designing the game. For example, without being able to look up the item IDs, the spin down dice is functionally very similar to the D6. You could look at the Stuff I Found page to know the IDs, but it still results in a different experience to using online tools. If the game doesn't provide information, people are more likely to seek it externally. By offering it in-game, Isaac can give a tailored version that's more accommodating to new players. Looking it up online can reveal too much information. By leaving detailed item descriptions to external sources, it creates a barrier to entry. Dedicated players can choose to opt into these features, while casual players might not even realize it's an option, keeping their experience more organic. Before being changed, unlocking the Lost was a cryptic puzzle designed around internet collaboration. The problem that arose was that it didn't account for another external factor, data mining. One way of external interaction undermined another. To account for this, Keeper was only patched in after a similar puzzle was solved. The only way to unlock the character, for everyone, was to solve the puzzle. So while not directly being a part of the game, these external factors affect how Isaac is designed and played, making it a part of the game, but only conditionally. To answer the question from the beginning, the variety affects almost every part of Isaac. The randomization of the vast content creates variety that is unpredictable and dependent on chance. If you dialed back the variety, it simply wouldn't be Isaac anymore. The appeal of Isaac is due to the variety, not in spite of it.
Isaac was cornered. His mother, fueled with the desire to serve her cow, was bearing down on Isaac. "You little fucker," Isaac's mother repeated to herself. But just as he accepted his fate, Cow intervened, sending a shit of peace down from above to stop his mother's hand. And just like that, I will become back my